All right, everybody, thank you so much for joining me for another episode of the Grow Rogue podcast. Today I'm with Mike Kipnis. Mike and I would say, have become friends because we've shared the stage now at least a handful of times talking about specifically for financial advisors, how they can grow their business. That's an area of focus that he and I both share. Me as a service provider, if you will, to that space, and Mike as a practitioner. And so we're going to talk about how to grow a practice in kind of this, we'll call it what it is, right? In a new world from when a lot of people started in the career, even if they started not that long ago. So with all that said, as a setup, Mike, I really appreciate you joining me on the Grow Rogue podcast.
Thanks, Reade. Great to be back with you again. And yeah, we're friends. I can call you a friend.
That's so good to hear. You never know, right? I mean, we've broken bread together, we've had coffee, we've spoken together. I feel like that checks all the boxes, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Well, great. So, Mike, I love your story of your background, right? Like how you talk about getting into the industry. And I feel like everybody has their version of it, but yours is super powerful. So if you can, I'd love to hear how you got involved in the business and some of those things that happened early on in your business that really shaped your career.
Sure thing, Reade. I am certainly what would be called in this industry a dinosaur. I started in June of 1983, 42 plus years in the financial services industry. Got started right out of college. I had no book of business. I scored very low and very poorly on the personality tests that would measure your chances of succeeding in the financial industry. I went to work for a 100% commission sales job in New York City, which is a pretty difficult market to get started in. Um, Back then, we had landline and landlines. That's all you had. You had a phone with a cord, and if you wanted to call someone up, you would use a landline to reach another landline. It was very different. That was back in the 80s. This is before cell phones, before email, before texting and LinkedIn and Facebook and all that stuff that we've grown to know, love, and maybe not love so much in the evolution of technology. But the early stages was trying to get in front of someone that you thought was a prospect. It could be a doctor, a lawyer, a CPA, an executive at a company. And if you were lucky enough to get them on the phone, you would have to have a certain amount of scripts memorized that would answer one or two or three objections to try and convince this complete stranger or referral or prospect that perhaps a live face-to-face meeting with Mike Kipnis would make some sense and I might be a resource to them at some point. I was never a great phoner. I was definitely not a good cold caller. I just worked a lot harder than a lot of guys that started in my same training class with me. There were 12 other young men that graduated in that summer of 1983, and they started to fall one by one because it was a really hard job, like it is still today, a really hard job to get started and get established. I just would think that if I worked as hard as they told me to work, I would fail if I just wasn't good at the job. I wasn't going to fail because I didn't work hard enough at the job. So I did that for many, many years from 1983 until um, the late 90s. My New York client base was primarily investment bankers on Wall Street. These guys would make $125,000 base salary and $1 million bonus sometime in February or March of the following year. Um, they didn't really have time to set up financial plans, as we used to call them. They were more about getting a transaction done. And that transaction could be permanent cash value life insurance. It could be setting up a college fund for a son or daughter. They didn't have a lot of time on the trading desk to really do full fact finding, but I got really, really good at understanding how these folks thought and how they made decisions. And I got pretty good at building trading desks in the Wall Street community at Merrill Lynch and Morgan Stanley and JP Morgan and Smith Barney and some companies that don't even exist anymore. I did that for 19 years in the greater New York City area. There was a very, very bad day in our country. It was 9/11, 2001. I had a typical Tuesday morning of appointments in downtown Manhattan. That particular day, I had a 10:30 appointment on the 104th floor of the World Trade Center. I was going to deliver a life insurance policy to a client of mine. And instead of getting all the way downtown to the Trade Center, I got a call on, at that point, a very, very, very basic cell phone that was just coming out in the late 90s, early 2000s. And people in my office said, you probably want to turn around and come back. Something's going on in downtown Manhattan. So I took that as a warning. I returned to my office. I watched on TV as the two Trade Center towers went down. I realized I was losing clients and friends that day. In fact, that client that I was going to deliver the life insurance policy to did not make it out of the building. I ended up paying a death claim 4 days later to his widow and his 6-month-old daughter. That was pretty powerful. Lost some other friends and clients that day in the building. And I was just fortunate not to be there when the planes hit at 8:46 and 9:16 a.m. That really spurred my desire to get out of the New York metropolitan area. I'd grown up my entire life in Greenwich, Connecticut, went to school in Pennsylvania at Lehigh University, went to work in New York City right out of college. I only knew what was called the tri-state area, New York, New Jersey, Connecticut. And most people would grow up in that part of the country and never leave. And that was great. But after 9/11, my wife and I decided I just didn't feel good getting on a subway, getting on a train, driving across the George Washington Bridge without really knowing what these terrorists were all about and whether or not my number would come up. So we took a leap of faith. My wife's from Alabama. She wanted to move back south at some point, even though we met in New York and we started our family up there. And we moved to a city called Alpharetta, Georgia. We built a house down here, and I started back into the prospecting world with only 10 contacts in Metro Atlanta. And like I said earlier, I was not going to be making cold calls. I was trying to grow my practice. Did a lot of networking the old fashioned way, going to chambers of commerce meetings, business associations, estate planning council meetings. And I got to meet some good people. And that was just being in a good environment, living in a nice neighborhood. My 4 kids played sports, did dance. I would go to all their events. I would meet the friends of theirs, adult parents, and have no problem getting to know them and turning them into clients, which was a lot of fun. That was from the early 2000s. And I think somewhere around 2010 or so, social media started to get going. I was a very early LinkedIn novice. I did not know what it was. I didn't know what it was going to become. If you sent me a LinkedIn invite, I pretty much would accept it every time, not even think why not. And I grew my presence on LinkedIn, but I had nothing intentional about it. I spent a lot of time trying to figure out how I could translate phone conversations into LinkedIn conversations and see if I could turn this business from a calling business to a typing business, as crazy as that sounds. And I got pretty good at it. I did go to school. I got a degree in finance and I got a minor in journalism. So I have a little bit of a skill of how to type a 3 or 4 sentence LinkedIn invite or conversation starter and see if I can get a complete stranger to engage with me, potentially set up a meeting with me, and ultimately acquire that client through the miracle of typing and volleying back and forth with someone you've just barely met on a LinkedIn connection, turning them into a prospect and ultimately into a client. That's kind of how I got to where I am now, Reade. I'm sure you've got a couple other questions or may want me to expand on something. Let me know.
Yeah, no, I definitely do, and I appreciate you giving that background, right? And that's such a powerful experience. And you and I have had conversations about this. I don't know that I've talked about this much on this podcast, but having a deep background in financial services and particularly life insurance, I know that every time you have to deliver a death benefit, it's this it's such a moving thing because you very definitely lost someone that you very likely have come to see as a friend. A lot of advisors would consider their clients to be friends because it's a very long-term relationship. And so you're
Hmm.
going to see the widow or the widower or the family members, and you're saying, look, I'm here, I'm sad. And this is, my dad used to talk about this. He said, look, we're all sad here, but there's one guy in the building that's bringing a check that's going to make sure the lights stay on and that the home, gets to stay in the family and all those things. And so it's an important work that you do and that those in the field do. And so, and of course, it just being intersecting with probably one of the most monumental events in at least either of our lifetimes.
Yep.
So that being kind of the foundation for this, um, getting into just these what you would call, instead of a calling business, a typing business. I read that as we're we're not actually changing what we said before about the value of the relationship and how you have to build those longer term bonds to have great client relationships. We're just talking about meeting people where they are. For you, how important is it to understand that, right? Their motivations, their thinking, the things they're concerned about, because you've got even less of a window into their mind share than if you were to call them. At least they can hear your voice. But over a text based or at least, an image based platform, even in the earlier days of LinkedIn, you got like a line of text. How are you able to do that effectively and get people to actually respond?
It's a great question. Um, I would say that just the way I have evolved in what I look at on my cell phone on a day-to-day basis. Um, and some people will laugh at this comment or these comments. Some people will say I'm out of my mind. I really think it's borderline rude to call someone on their cell phone without an appointment. I can tell you I've had about 7 of those today, and unless it's a family member, um, I really can't be available. I don't want to sound like that's too big of a deal, but if I don't recognize the number, Reade, 9 times out of 10, it's a sales call from a robot, and I don't need to lose time in my day for that. Um, I will be very intentional if I've had a tough time reaching a prospect or a referral or even a lukewarm LinkedIn person, almost apologetically saying, I'm really sorry I'm reaching you on your phone. I know we don't have time blocked off right now. This is Mike Kipnis. I was trying to get on your calendar. I think that's really the way people have evolved in what they feel their phone is. In the early days of cell phones, it was just about an emergency call. Like your wife is telling you to come home early because one of the kids fell off the swing set. Now it's just a way of life. Now, in certain financial organizations, texting is watched over by the eye in the sky of the financial organization that they work with or work for. And we are discouraged from texting a prospect. At least I am in the venue that I work in right now. So I am intentionally not sending Reade Milner a text saying, "Hey Reade, trying to get on your calendar. So and so referred me to you. Thought we'd enjoy meeting." I'm going to be very guarded about, I don't want to outstep my bounds and jump in the cell phone world right away. So, back to the real question you're asking. I might go to the Greater North Fulton Chamber of Commerce Pro Alliance event here in Alpharetta every other Wednesday morning. And at that event, there's about 60 to 70 names on a piece of paper, which is everyone who pre-registered for the event, their email, their phone number, their industry, their company. Now, I'm not too proud to glance through that list or highlight it through the course of the meeting when I hear people speaking, and then follow up directly with someone who I don't know and send them a LinkedIn note, something as simple read as, hey, it was great seeing you today at the chamber event. Didn't get a chance to talk with you face to face. Would love to get on your calendar. I'm available Tuesday at 10, Wednesday at 2. We could do a Zoom or a coffee. Which is better for you? All the best, Mike. Now, they may not be a LinkedIn connection yet, so I might just send out the basic LinkedIn connection that just invites them to accept me. And maybe they accept me 7 out of 10 times because the name rang a bell because I was at the same event they were at. I'll be brutally honest. I paid for LinkedIn Premium for a while. I didn't really see a difference in what it made to my ratios. So I just do the free stuff. I don't pay the extra to get around emails or to get certain extra value in the communication skills. So it's pretty basic, Reade, as far as how I start the conversation on LinkedIn. But as far as what I'm saying about who I am, what I do, why I might be a resource, it's very generic. I use a lot of just basic sales language. Reade, I may or may not be a resource to you, but would you be open for a 15-minute Zoom call? I'll tell you a little bit more about what I do here in the financial industry. Love to learn more about what you do in your industry. Would you be open Tuesday at 10 or Wednesday at 2? Always give them 2 different days, 2 different times. The reason is if you say something as silly as, Reade, you have availability next week, Reade's not even going to look at his calendar. He really isn't. He's not that motivated. I'm sure he has availability, but I'm not looking at it the same way as Kipniss saying, are you available Tuesday at 10 or Wednesday at 2? I'm going to look at my calendar and I'm either going to say, can't do either day and have them volley me back something else. Or, yeah, Tuesday at 10 looks good. I live in Canton, Georgia. I spend a lot of time in Alpharetta. You want to get a bagel or a coffee. And I would say in that communication, going back to the phone call where they do hear your voice and you may or may not be good on the phone, I'm just having a ping pong match within LinkedIn. I want to keep the volley going. I want the volley to go out. I want the ball to come back. And usually after about 3 volleys, I've got an appointment. Not all the time, but usually I've said enough interesting and intriguing stuff that they might say, you know, what's 15 or 20 minutes on Zoom call with Kipniss? Probably not the worst thing I do on a Tuesday morning at 10 o'clock. So that's kind of how it's evolved. I do a lot of emails off of LinkedIn. If you know, once you get a connection on LinkedIn and you go to their contact info, usually you can access their email. Sometimes people will share their phone number with them. But I do not want to intrude on anyone's LinkedIn day. And if I've sent 5 LinkedIn notes on someone's birthday or career anniversary or job promotion, and they haven't even said thank you, Mike, I intentionally delete that connection because I realize they don't use LinkedIn the way I do. I don't know if that answers the question or makes any sense, Reade, but that's how I'm using it these days.
No, it totally does. And so two questions, two different directions. So I'm going to start with the one that's closest to where we, or that keeps us close to where we are. What we hear a lot from sales people who are using LinkedIn is that the user experience, the UI, UX, whatever it is, inside the LinkedIn inbox is limited, to put it simply. How do you keep it all organized? Because you probably have, what do you think, a couple hundred open conversations in that inbox at any given time, I would imagine.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to tell everybody who may be listening to this that, LinkedIn isn't a business plan. It's part of a business plan. The same way cold calling is not a business plan, it's part of a business plan. I do spend 60 to 90 minutes a day on LinkedIn. If my wife is watching The Bachelor at 8 o'clock on Monday night, I'm watching it, but I'm not paying attention. I'm on LinkedIn and I'm making money. I'm generating appointments. Um, I have about 9,000 connections right now. I think you might be pretty accurate. There's probably a couple hundred open conversations going at any time where, oh my gosh, she offered me Monday at noon. I didn't get back to her. It's Friday. I may have lost that opening. I got to get back in touch with the person. That's just being somewhat organized and very intentional. So, 60 to 90 minutes a day is what I do as far as on LinkedIn. I will never miss a birthday. I don't care if I know you. I don't care if you hate me. I am going to wish you a happy birthday on LinkedIn. But it won't just be the generic happy birthday. I will add a sentence or two. And I think this is the secret sauce in any kind of digital marketing. Well, I'm going to get 50 happy birthdays from 50 strangers. But maybe I'll get 15 from guys like Kipniss that say, Reade, hope you had a great birthday. It was good seeing you last week at the NAFA event. Let's grab coffee next week. I'm available Tuesday at 10, Wednesday at 2. I'm going to try for an appointment. Just going to be that bold. I don't care. It doesn't cost anything. You never hear a phone slammed in your ear on LinkedIn. It just can't happen. Now, people can go dark on you. They can be non-responsive. I get over it. It's not that big of a deal. If somebody has a real problem with it, the harshest responses I've gotten, Reade, are something along the lines of, what is this all about? What are you trying to sell me? And I am absolutely fine saying, you know what? I may or may not be a resource to you. I work for a world-class financial services company in Metro Atlanta. If you'd like to entertain a quick phone call with me or a Zoom call or a coffee, hope to have an opportunity to meet with you. If not, we're fine. Have a great day. All the best, Mike. It doesn't happen that much. Now, I do have the benefit of gray hair. I have the benefit of a 40-year history. If you play around on my bio and you go back historically, I'm not saying it's impressive, but I've got 4 professional designations after my last name. I've volunteered at many nonprofits here in Metro Atlanta. I'm involved in a lot of different communities. A lot of people know me because they know people who are around the same kind of community that I've served for the last 23 years I've been in Atlanta. So I think the delicate nature of trying not to look like a robot or look like ChatGPT just sent that out. None of my messages are the same. They're just not. They just come from up here. They may have the same gist to it. Are you available Tuesday at 10, Wednesday at 2? If I see that somebody on their profile lives in sleepy little Canton, Georgia, which is where I moved to 2 years ago, I'll say, hey, I notice you live in Canton. So do I. There's a great coffee shop called Flourish down the street. It's only the employees are 100% special needs adults. It's a really cool place to grab coffee. You around Tuesday or Thursday, you want to grab coffee over there? I will lead with something I notice. If they went to college with me, which is unlikely because I'm a Yankee transplant down here, but if someone went to Lehigh University in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, why would I not pay attention to their little snippet of a bio and promote the fact I'm being a little bit more prepared than somebody who might not have done the homework? Why am I even trying to meet this guy? And I think somewhere in there, Reade, you were saying, what are you trying to meet them for? A business owner is obviously a prospect if you're in the financial industry. A high-level executive at Coca-Cola or Home Depot, great prospects as they're getting closer to retirement. Anyone who changed jobs just changed benefits. They may have an old 401k that they have to roll over, and they might want to hire me to do that. They have a new array of benefits at their new company. Maybe they need some help selecting their voluntary life insurance, their voluntary supplemental disability coverage, how they build their 401k plan. So I try to be a friend of theirs, even though they don't really know me. And it's just having 3 or 4 scripts that we used to call phone scripts that are now just, I have 108 templates on LinkedIn that can pretty much keep a conversation going. And that's what, you and I speak about when we're asked to speak in our industry. And it's fun to help educate people on what I call the miracle of LinkedIn. It's here for a while. I don't know if it's going to go away or going to get replaced, but I would say it's got another 15 or 20 years for sure.
Well, I think so too. If nothing else, because of the just the massive numbers on the platform and the backing that it's got with the Microsoft acquisition a couple of years ago. I want to. This is all really, really good practical advice for an individual person in a sales role, right? So just to recap, I think, and you said this at the end, but I'm going to put this at the beginning for those listening, understanding who your ideal customer, your ideal client profile is really important. And LinkedIn has a lot of great tools to help identify those people. And then the second step is finding that overlap in their interests or things about their life with yours that you can connect on. That really stuck out a lot to me. I think that's really powerful. And then having human language, and I love, I love AI. I'm going to use every bit of it I can, but I understand that if you want to get human beings to react, then it's going to need to at least sound like a human being is the one reaching out. Those are all really helpful. I'm curious about what you think about launching something like this on an organization wide level for sales teams, right? So if there's we're talking to sales reps, if you will, first. Talk to sales leaders. How do you and can you duplicate this across an organization of, say, 100 plus, advisors or sales reps that are trying to use LinkedIn for prospecting purposes?
Well, I mean, I have personally coached and mentored hundreds of 22, 25, 30, 35, 40-year old financial advisors in multiple different agencies, um, you know, from the days of LinkedIn forward, which, I would say you've got the early stages of LinkedIn, which was pre-COVID, and then post-COVID, which is where I think everyone started to accept Zoom, and
Mhm.
it wasn't as hard as, hey, you're in Buckhead, I'm in Alpharetta, why don't we meet at the perimeter for coffee? And somebody doesn't want to leave their office. I don't blame them, you
Yeah.
know. But I think training organizations, the buy-in has to be at the top. If you've got a cold calling culture, and I've been around plenty of them, and you've got these Zoom info lists that people are paying thousands and thousands of dollars to quote unquote get prime leads, like 250,000 and up executives at Coca-Cola and Home Depot and all these great companies. It's still a cold call, Reade, at the end of the day. I don't care how good your script is, but I've looked at so many reports from our newer advisors, and I'm not making up these stats. 700 dials, 15 reached, 1 appointment made. Are you kidding me?
Right.
If I send 700 LinkedIn notes out, I'm going to get 350 people replying, and I'm going to get 100 appointments. It's just better math. And the organizations that fight it are probably more the old school of, this is a calling business. This is a live business. You call people, you call people. Back to my earlier comment, I think it's rude to call someone without a phone appointment on their cell phone. That's me personally. You call me, I see your name. I like you, I don't like you. I'm going to make a decision in 30 seconds. Am I taking the call? I might be driving for 5 hours down to Florida. Is this guy or gal worthy of being able to reach me that easily? that implies I've got nothing going on. It just does. So I really don't take a lot of those calls. If it's somebody I've been playing phone tag with and he's a great prospect, of course I'm going to take the call. If it's Arthur Blank and he wants me to come over for coffee, I'm going to take the call. But at the end of the day, an organization has to either buy into social media at some level, and I go to enough networking events that there are dozens and dozens and dozens of people coaching people on this. I'm an expert in my industry. It may not translate into medical device sales because doctors don't play on LinkedIn, so they have no reason to be on LinkedIn. But if I'm trying to reach an attorney or a CPA or an executive, and we have about 50 connections in common, he's probably going to know somebody that we have a connection with pretty well, that I know pretty well, and I can immediately validate, hey, you might want to get on Mike Kipnis's calendar. That's one way to look at it. Getting an organization to have Mike Kipnis come in once a month for training, that's kind of my pre-retirement, retirement strategy, because I love doing what we're doing right now. You don't have to believe it. Last year, I made over $80,000 meeting strangers on LinkedIn. The year before, it was about 60. It's amazing that people don't want to pick up the phone, but they're okay typing a response. And some of your best prospects are people that don't answer their phone. And for the same reasons, I don't typically answer my phone. So I think an organization has to have the leadership that understands LinkedIn is not a business plan, it's part of a business plan. Nothing will replace referrals, centers of influence, favorable introductions, joining a country club, joining a bowling league, playing ice hockey, doing stuff in the community, being a volunteer at a church or a nonprofit. But if you put me in a situation where I was given the same chances to succeed, I'll give you 1,000 cold names, Mike, with phone numbers, or 1,000 cold names, Mike, with their LinkedIn addresses. I'll go the LinkedIn route every time. No doubt about it. I have no desire to call people that don't answer the phone. That's a time waste for me.
I, I'm right there with you, right? I think that the numbers, the math, it doesn't make sense. I actually am seeing. I'm curious to know what you think about this. You and I have both been we've been in this LinkedIn social media, game for, I mean, a good while, right? Good, 10, I think I got my uh, 17-year or something like that anniversary email from LinkedIn. They're going to give me a gold watch at some point, right? I was an early user, and I've seen a lot, or I've had a lot of the discussions with the organizations that are like the ones you described, that they're just refusing to adapt and they're stuck with the old ways. Very different challenge these days. And I'm almost hearing more often than not that no, that's not sophisticated enough for us now, right? It must be an AI agent, or it must be completely automated, or it must be something that we can do, quote unquote, at scale. You talked about something that I think is it can be very, or it's very real for advisors, because when you talk about, you made another 80,000, last year, 60,000 the year before, that is there's a cumulative effect of financial advisor compensation for those that are not familiar with that field, right? But the same is true of the value of your network over time. It doesn't have to be massive numbers and massive scale, but if it's consistent, and if there's quality connection and quality relationships that come out of this, there's a similar compounding effect of that expanded network. It does not always and only have to be sales appointments, right? I'm going to close this guy in this meeting, or else this was a waste of time. What is your reaction to that?
Well, that's a great point because I would rather be a giver than a taker. I can't tell you how many times in the course of a day someone is asking me for a banker or a CPA or a trust and estate attorney or a business attorney or a mortgage lender. It's never ending. Or they will actually go on my LinkedIn profile and look up connections I have with people in that industry. And this is not a place to be a phony, and that will sound a little abrasive. I am not a phony. I am actually trying to help each and every person I talk to. Many of them will have no chance ever to become a client of mine because they just don't fit my
Right.
profile, or they're already with somebody and they're all set, or maybe we don't have a good fit with our platform. But like, you've got to give to get. It's no different than if I gave an estate attorney 5 referrals and those 5 referrals came back to me and said that attorney was the best, thank you, Mike, and that attorney doesn't give me one in return, Reade, I'll just find another attorney. It's got to be an even playing field. I think one of the benefits of doing this over a period of time, and I'm sure you've seen this, is that you kind of build a reputation of, gee, Mike Kipnis really knows everyone in Atlanta. Reade Milner really knows a lot of people in Atlanta. And you want to be known for that. Hopefully, with the reputation that you've done good work in your field and you've delivered good value. You don't want somebody to post on LinkedIn, hey, if you see this AI message from a guy named Mike Kipnis, he's just trying to sell you something. That's the death of you. We all know bad reputations are harder to break away from than building a good one. So you have to be honest, and being phony on LinkedIn is again, that's the AI game. Everyone is getting the same message. Everyone is getting the same response to the response to that message. And I spot it. I don't know if you could spot it, Reade, but like, I have fun with it. When I know I'm in a volley with a bot or whatever we're calling them, I play it all the way to the end. And then eventually I call the guy out. I said, do you know that you had me at hello? Like, back to the Jerry Maguire movie. Like, who would want to be so pathetically not treated like a human being? And you could say what you want, that how hokey it is to wish somebody a happy birthday, congratulate them on a work anniversary, however it sounds. You made a little bit more effort than the other people who chose not to hit that button. It's under the catch up button on your My Network. And I spend 60 to 90 minutes a day catching up. It couldn't be a better marketing device. The catch up portion of my LinkedIn profile, I could literally train a 25-year-old to type back what I would normally say, but I enjoy doing it myself. Because what if I really do know that guy? And what if I say something so silly like my fraternity brother from Basking Ridge, New Jersey? If I have a bot asking him for coffee and I'm in Atlanta, well, that doesn't go very far. And the response is probably going to be, obviously, that wasn't you, Kipnis. I'm still in New Jersey. When are you coming by? So I do think AI is a tool, but I think if you're in a sales industry and you're trying to create credibility, part of it is what your profile is, part of it is how often you communicate. I have some posts that come out that my company just sends out harmlessly once a week. They're pre-approved. They go through compliance. I don't get a lot of responses other than a couple of thumbs up or a like here or there, but it shows that I'm out and I'm involved in the marketplace, in the community. I think that's the real win for anyone who's going to do LinkedIn as part of their business model. Is you're going to get thank yous. You're going to get people that appreciate you. You'll get just as frustrated than following up with a guy that you called and called and called and called and called and he stops returning your call. It's no different. People go dark, people ghost us. It's going to happen. You can't take it personally. I just enjoy the banter of seeing how I could get a complete stranger who I long have wanted to get on my calendar, who I think is a perfect fit for our firm and my team, and never would have picked up the phone. But three LinkedIn notes later, he's on my calendar. I think that's the message I would really try to spin to anyone who's in sales is how can you be a differentiator? It's not about sending the same message 1,000 times to 1,000 doctors and nobody reads it. Sending a similar message with a personal touch to it. Nothing wrong with saying, hey, I know you live in Canton. I live in Canton. Hey, it looks like you live in Alpharetta. I can meet you at Bagel Boys. That's my favorite spot. That means you paid attention to their profile. And I don't know how hard that is to just be a human and put the human touch on it. But I think that's why I've had success with it, Reade.
Well, I think that's and that's good final advice there is that you can look all you want to for how and why this should be more complicated than it is, but it's doing the things that are quote unquote unscalable and doing them consistently. And I think what you have illustrated is that you figured out how to enjoy the work of prospecting, which I think if you told somebody, or if somebody told you that they enjoyed cold calling, for example, you would check them into an asylum
Right.
immediately, right?
Yep.
So this is a method that it is scalable, right? Because when you scale up, 45, 60, 90 minutes a day, 5 days a week, 20 working days in a month, right? I mean, you don't have to spend half your day there. You don't have to do it for, 7 days a week. You can if you want to. But if you find a way to enjoy doing that routine, follow up, if you can keep organized, this is absolutely something that can be scaled across an entire sales organization. If the training is there, if the adherence is there, if the buy-in among the team is there, and the results are going to feed that, right? Once you start to see the power of that compounding network effect, then you won't have to get this consistent buy-in that you're not having to beg people to continue to do it. At least that's what we've seen when organizations have implemented this in their firms. And so I know we're coming up on time, Mike. We are going to have to bring you back for a secondary, a part two. Maybe we make this a little bit of a workshop style.
Okay.
But I
I'll
can
be
tell
happy
you
to.
that our audience will learn a lot from this episode. Folks, if you want to get in touch with Mike, I think you all know what I'm going to say is that he's on LinkedIn. He'll respond to your message. I'll make sure, Mike, that your LinkedIn is in the description of this video if you're watching on
Sure.
YouTube, and we'll also be tagging Mike in all notifications or all publishings of our episode on places like LinkedIn. So if you want to get in touch with him, make sure to do so. Bring him in, have him talk to your team. And of course, you're still a practicing advisor. So if you're looking for help in that area, Mike is definitely your guy. Mike, I really appreciate you being a part of the Grow Rogue podcast. Can't wait to have you on again.
Thanks, Reade. I enjoyed it. Hopefully, I brought some value to the audience. I look forward to doing it again. Appreciate your time as well.
Thank you.